I'm Brian Scordato, and this is the Idea to Startup podcast brought to you by Tacklebox. We accelerate ideas into real companies through the Tacklebox membership, and we think through startup strategy every Wednesday on the Idea to Startup podcast. You're here because you're thinking about an idea, or you're ready to launch something, or you already launched something and you're running full steam ahead. We're here to help with the counterintuitive stuff. On to it. Today, we're going to talk about left and right brain. Specifically, I'm going to talk to right brain founders and help them navigate being stuck in a left brain world. And we'll start with a story. I got pretty close to a prolific venture capitalist who'd been investing in New York City tech from the early 2000s, back when there was a very small niche startup scene, and Tumblr and Foursquare were doing everything they could to try and drag the city into tech relevancy. He never invested in anything I did, but he helped me a ton in other ways. Probably most helpful was him letting me in on how he evaluated super early stage companies. Also, a totally random bit of color. He always wanted to meet at Pizzeria Uno's on the Upper West Side, which I thought was the absolute strangest possible place to meet for pizza in New York freaking city. But I must say, the pizza isn't that bad. I always joke that everyone else in there must be having an affair because the Pizzeria Uno in New York City is the one place no one's going to ever look for you. Anyway, back to how he evaluated startups. He'd run them through what he called the stack, a batch of binary questions he'd come up with over the years. He said he'd earned these questions. Each came with a story of him either passing on a business that ended up being successful or investing in a dud. Since every question was binary, a startup either got 1 point or 0 points for each, and he had a threshold a startup had to meet for investment. It was a Moneyball type of approach, one that, he hoped, took out emotion and would work in the long term over a bunch of investments. I'll give you one quick example of one of those questions. One time at Pizzeria Uno's while eating deep dish in the dead heart of August, I mentioned offhand about one of the hotter startups of the moment, ClassPass. I said I loved their model and half jokingly said I bet he wished he'd been in on their angel round. For everyone who isn't familiar with ClassPass, it's a subscription service that allows you to book lots of boutique fitness classes from different studios with one membership. So you pay ClassPass $150 or whatever per month, and then you get to go to 10 classes a month from their marketplace of studios with things like yoga, cycling, Pilates, high intensity, all that. Oh, I had the chance, he said. Great founder and great team, but I passed. He said it with no trace of regret, which kind of blew me away because ClassPass was hot. Why no regret? I asked. Mostly because it failed the what if it actually works question. He continued. This is my version of the famous quote from Jurassic Park. Everyone was so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Let's say ClassPass works exactly as it's supposed to. Lots of end users and studios sign up and there's a thriving marketplace. This looks great from the outside, but if it works, it doesn't work. He started counting the points he was making on his fingers. A studio charges $40 per class or $30 per month for 10 classes. But when a customer comes through ClassPass, they'll only get maybe $10 for that customer. And yes, of course, some totally new customers are going to discover them through ClassPass and show up. But these, again, aren't going to be profitable customers. And a bunch of their existing $300 per month members will likely switch to ClassPass and then keep showing up, but just for 1/4 the price. And popular studios won't ever join because if they do, their classes are going to get flooded with low margin customers. And who wants that? Overall, ClassPass says they want people to, quote, discover new studios. But this isn't actually good for the studios. And the studios are hoping to use ClassPass to get new dedicated members, which is unlikely. The incentives directly oppose each other. That is not a good marketplace. And yes, he continued, absolutely, it could work for a while and the team is great and maybe they'll figure something out I haven't thought of. But for a company to really, really grow in a way that gives a venture scale return, the key parts of the company need to be aligned. The product working needs to be a great outcome for everyone, and in this case, I just don't see how it is. So I passed. And that is how the questions work, and the story is interesting enough. But the reason he has the questions in the first place is what we're really going to talk about today. When telling me about them the first time, he said he invented them because he's a right brain dominant person, which means that he sees the world as a bunch of pieces that can be put together to build something interesting or beautiful or useful. And this perspective made him want to invest in every single startup he met. He created the questions as a left brain check on his right brain enthusiasm, as a filter. He made it clear that left brain and right brain weren't actually as distinct as most people thought. It's a huge oversimplification, he said, that left brain is logical and right brain is creative. Instead, he gave tendencies for each. And in this episode, we'll use the terms right brain and left brain in a wildly unscientific way. If you want, you could swap dreamers versus executors. But lots of people talk about left brain and right brain, so we're going to stick with it. The big thing is all about the tendencies each type of founder has and their default processing approach. The left brain is good at linear and analytical thinking, at breaking big things down into smaller, tackleable parts. It likes precision and is, at all times, in desperate search for and need of rules to be followed. The right brain is good at nonlinear and contextual thinking. It sees the pattern first and is good at integrating parts into a whole, good at reading emotion, and it prefers flexibility over those strict rules. A good way to think about it is that the right brain sees the forest and the left brain organizes the trees. For startups and investing in startups, you obviously need both left and right brain. Our investing friend knew his default was right brain thinking, so he built a system to ensure he got the left brain structure in there too. For our founders, the awareness of your thinking type and a system to balance it out is critical. I'd guess maybe 60% of the founders I meet act in that right brain way, and for lots of them, it's their downfall. Right brain founders tend to run out of runway while making big plans. Most never launch a thing. So today, we've got a 3-pack of tactics right brain founders can leverage to tap into their left brain and stop spinning around chasing their tail and actually get something out into the world. They stem from 3 catastrophic habits us right brainers, yes, I am definitely one of you, suffer from. 1. Lacking a coherent goal, which means we don't know what tasks to work on at any given moment. 2. Not being able to get back on track after the inevitable rabbit holes that we go down. And 3. Being hamstrung by your other ideas. Let's get into them. Let's create a system to actually get our stuff into the world. And let's do it after a little smooth jazz with a discount code because it is that time of year. Hey, for the holiday season, I'll be doing 50% off your first month of Tacklebox with code HOLIDAY2025. If you've got a startup idea and a full-time job and want to actually launch that thing with me as your coach, let's do it. Head to gettacklebox.com and apply. After you're accepted, you'll have the chance to put in Holiday 2025 for 50% off your first month. Also, just a heads up, our program usually fills up in January with all the resolution folks. So if you want to do Tacklebox, it's probably best to get in now. Holiday 2025 is the code. Back to it. Part 1. You probably don't have a goal, and that is not good. We'll start with goals. The blessing and the curse of us right-brain folk is that we dream a lot. We also believe in ourselves to reach those dreams, and both of those things, dreaming and believing in ourselves, are very important for entrepreneurs. The startup world is not kind to founders after incremental gains and founders who don't think they can get anywhere. Big vision and belief in yourself is critical. But 2 things happen when you like to dream. First, you spend too much time dreaming and not enough time on concrete actions moving you towards that dream, so your dreams get so big and ambitious they become functionally useless. You probably could have guessed that one. And number 2, since you dream so much, the goalposts are always shifting. The dream is never sturdy enough to build a plan around. It grows and expands and gets less attainable, like the helium balloon my son accidentally let go of at an outdoor birthday party last week. Here is an example. A founder applied to Tacklebox recently with an idea for an AI for the home tool. He'd done a bunch of great customer work with homeowners, knocking on doors and asking one question. If he was their personal contractor, if they could ask him to fix anything in their house right now, what would it be? He found 4 common issues that people tend to be dragging their feet on. 1, something with plumbing. Usually the water pressure in the shower was inconsistent, or the water didn't get hot enough, or a toilet didn't work, or a drain was clogged. 2, something HVAC related. Heat didn't get hot, AC didn't get cold, the bill was too high. 3, a pest issue. Mice, bugs, ants, whatever. for a tree issue. They weren't sure if a tree was in danger of falling on the house. So, he said, my plan was to pick one of those four and focus on it. The was in his sentence scared me. He continued. But then I figured I could actually handle whatever task they wanted because I could just find contractors for each. And I can start with an audit of their house, creating a dashboard with all their systems that I can update when they need attention. And it's something they can use when they try and sell their home. Then on the vendor side, I can maybe start grouping projects to try and get bulk discounts. And obviously, there's a huge AI component that he right brained for another minute or two before finally stopping. So, what are you doing right now? I asked. He shook his head and acted like I'd just asked him to explain quantum computing. And this is the right brain problem. Absolutely everything he was talking about could maybe work, but it's a completely unapproachable vision, especially for a right brain person who struggles building out a set of tasks and following them, which is all of them. The problem with the right brain dreaming is that you know there's always another dream coming right behind the one you're on, and that dream might be better than the one you've got right now. So, anytime you sit down to work, you're working on something that, in the back of your mind, might be outdated tomorrow. So, you get paralyzed. The way to combat it is to build a system that jumps in, a more assertive left brain. The beauty of the left brain is that it's much easier to fake than your right brain, especially now. What I do, and what I suggest you do, is outsource your left brain to AI. The fear for right brain folks with this is that if you ask AI to prioritize your massive vision, it might pick the wrong stuff to focus on first. But the beauty is that it literally doesn't matter. Maybe ChatGPT says to focus first on what we call at Tacklebox a concierge MVP, a full test where you help 5 different homes with plumbing issues and actually execute on them. You find the homeowner, match them with a plumber, charge them a premium, and get feedback. Maybe it was actually better to focus on something else first, like the home operating system piece. But any goal is better than no goal when you start. You need to make progress and get some sort of validation and context one way or the other. You need to move in a straight line for a while, then pick your head up and make a decision on continuing or pivoting. So here's what you do. Type all of your thoughts and dreams into ChatGPT. Tell it that you're right brained and you need some help setting a clear goal with tasks underneath it that push you towards validation of your big idea. Tell it how many hours you want to work and when you can do that work and what you're good at and what you like. Have it set you a schedule and make a Notion doc with a checklist for you each day. Then, when you sit down to work, reference it, make progress, use it like a journal to say what you did and what you struggled with, and move on. You're outsourcing the left brain because that doesn't come natural to you. Okay, on to the next right brain struggle, regrouping. The Regroup System. A right brain calling card are rabbit holes. We see something interesting and we go after it. This is, again, a massive strength, but when you've only got 45 minutes to work on your startup each day, it can be catastrophic for all the reasons we just discussed. So, a skill all entrepreneurs need is what we call the Regroup System, a way to seamlessly switch from your regular life to your startup life with as little drag between the two as possible. The first 15 minutes of your dedicated startup time can't be spent on rabbit holes or on wondering where you left off or what you should do next. The Regroup System is something you will have to force yourself to do because you won't like doing it, but it's invaluable. And again, this is a place for ChatGPT to push you to do it. When you finish your startup sessions, building towards those firm goals we just established, spend 3 minutes writing out long form, no bullets, what you finished today and where you need to start tomorrow. So if you're working on selling those plumbing services, you might write, quote, I spoke with 3 families today. They each asked for more information and wanted to see a website, which obviously I don't have. So I started working on a template in Squarespace. I was finishing up the H1 and was working on the H2. Start by getting back into that. I've got all the H2 ideas in Notion and a Tacklebox article on problem language linked below. Start by reading through that article, then get 10 H2 ideas out. The goal is to finish the website by Friday so that I can send it to the people I spoke with today, and the goal for tomorrow is to finish all of the above the fold text. That cadence and running diary will keep you on track, and your right brain needs that because in between your working sessions, you're obviously going to come up with 15 more ideas and email them to yourself and be ready to test them all. But To make any progress, you'll need to keep those at bay, which is the last critical piece for today, the Icebox. The Icebox. If you're a regular listener, you know about Linguini, my life operating system that lives in Notion. One of the most important parts of that system is the Icebox. I learned the phrase from a development shop I worked with over 10 years ago. The basic idea is anything that doesn't fit into your current sprint, ideas on the current business, ideas on another business, random ideas, they all go into the Icebox and you get back to the task at hand. You aren't forgetting these things altogether or throwing them in the trash. You just can't work on them right now. You freeze them. Here's an example. The other day, I heard a story about a sailboat race from the 1960s where 9 people all tried to get around the world without stopping. The fastest one would get a cash prize. Apparently, of the 9 people who set out, only 6 were sailors. One person was in a ton of debt to the mafia and was trying to win the race as a last resort to pay them back. Another was being blackmailed and was trying to pay off that person. Another ended up trying to fake the whole race. The story is incredible. I searched for books to read on it, and there weren't any. For 2 days, I was obsessed with the idea of writing this book and started mapping the whole thing out before I realized I had to chuck it in the Icebox. I've got other goals I'm working towards that are really important. It just isn't the time. So I wrapped the whole thing up, described where I was at, why I was excited about it, and where to pick up when I did have time, and I tossed it in the Icebox. For our AI for Homes founder, the Icebox is where the 30 things he can't start with go. It's for your coffee startup idea and the bar named Glory Days you want to open up with your college buddies and the musical set in New York City about the guys on delivery bikes that you want to write. Every quarter, I check the Icebox to make sure I'm working on the right stuff, but it's important to realize if you just jump from one thing to another, you'll never get anywhere. The Icebox makes you excited to finish one thing so that you can get on to the next one. The end. As our listeners probably know, I've got 2 boys now. They're the absolute light of my life, and I want to spend as much time as possible with them. But I also want to make incredible stuff. I want Tacklebox and the pod and the book to be great. I want to write novels and finish an Iron Man. Time is the thing. So I need systems, because my right brain will just take me down rabbit holes on light roasted coffee and sailboat races from the 60s, and I'm never going to remove that entirely, but I can build systems to get a left brain to keep it all in check a bit more. Outsource your left brain to AI. Create a Regroup System. Build your Icebox. And please, never go to Pizzeria Uno's in August. Really don't go ever, but especially not in August. Have a great week. This was the Idea Startup Podcast brought to you by Tacklebox. And reminder, you got a little discount coming your way. Holiday 2025, after you're accepted, will get you 50% off your first month. Have a great week.